Mr. Shenoy, can you tell us a little bit about how Trendslaughter began and what your concerns and motivations were when you started out?
Actually, we started out in 2011. I've been going for several gigs before, and what happened was I used to travel frequently abroad, especially to places in Southeast Asia like Thailand and Malaysia, Singapore, and try and catch shows over there. And I saw some really great bands over there, especially when I had gone to watch Inquisition, which is like my all-time favorite black metal band. And what happened was that when I saw the other bands on the lineup, I was so amazed by them. I said, these bands have to be playing shows in India. And back then, nobody was doing these kind of underground shows, and most of the bands that were playing over here also were like mostly djent and new metal bands used to get chances, and others it would be like a very few bands that were actually doing shows. So the scene was quite stale in a way, and what happened was I remember going for the show, seeing Orator live. Actually, I went for Inquisition in 2010, somewhere I think in March or April, and then 3 months down the line I heard, I knew the guys from Orator, and they said, Sandesh, why don't you come down again to Thailand to watch us? We are playing with Mansa, we're playing with Zygotes, and a lot of these Legion of Death records bands. So I said, okay, I'm going to go. I'm going to watch them. I caught up with them, and I really had a fantastic time. And I remember Abigail, who played at the second Trendslaughter, were playing, and it just hit me so hard. I said, I really need to have these guys here. I really need to have these guys. And I asked later, I asked Abigail, and I said, do you guys ever want to come down? And those guys were like, Orator has been a band that's been obsessed with Indian mythology, Indian occult, and they said, yeah, we are coming down. Abigail within 2 minutes, and I've known Abigail for almost 12, 13 years. He said, we'll do this. I came back, I spoke to Vikram from Dying Embrace, then my friend Kiran and Preetham again from Dying Embrace. So there are five of us, and this guy called Vamsi also is there. So what happened was they said, okay, let's do it. That's pretty much how the first TSF began.
So when you came back and when you might have shared the idea with a few people, what was their initial response to this?
The initial response, is since we're doing something really different, it was everyone was very cautious because shows, we never knew how to do shows, and we were completely, as people say, noobs at it. So there was a lot of things to coordinate, but all of us were so charged up about it. We were like, we are creating something new over here, so why don't we just try it? And then Dying Embrace had just played one show before at Underground Fest, and I said, dude, you guys need to do more shows. That was a pretty epic show, but I think and the whole thing was Dying Embrace was a Legion of Death band, Orator was coming down as a Legion of Death band. I said, this is like a great chemistry between you all guys also, and I think we should do this show. And besides trying to get a venue, trying to organize stuff, trying to like get people, because since we've never done a show before, even though we've been in the metal scene for such a long time, it was really nice to have almost 180 people turned up at that gig.
Right.
And it was a great success, and it really fueled us to do a lot more stuff other than that, do more shows. And I guess that's how everyone reacted pretty much.
So when you started, did you anticipate that this would blow up and you would be so successful?
Absolutely not. The thing is, when you're starting something new, of course you're looking for success, but the thing was, it was more important for us to actually reach to an audience than anything else, than have a success. Primarily because more than anybody else, we were dying to see shows. And we've been all into the underground metal scene, and of course we listen to a lot of good heavy metal, the commercial bands like Maiden, Judas Priest, Black Sabbath and stuff. and that stuff was happening. People were still listening to the music, but there was music that was not being captured from the underground scene, and I wanted to bring that alive over here. Vikram wanted to bring that alive from Dying Embrace. He wanted to bring it alive because we all listen to this music. And when we started, I started discovering a lot of really good bands from Southeast Asia and South Asia. I said, man, we got to have these guys over here. And yeah, that's how it is.
Do you have a process as to how you identify what bands play each year?
There is a process, of course. I mean, one, we obviously have to like the music. That's the single most important point. And it's just not me. It's a lot of the other partners who also have to like the music. There were times where we had bands that I really loved. Okay, but the thing is, since we have such varied taste, I mean, I'm into a lot of black metal. Vikram's into a lot of death and grind. Kiran is into again grind and thrash. Preetham is into old school heavy metal. I mean, we all love all these kinds of music, but the thing is that we all have our favorites. So when I want to bring a band down, I have to think twice. I have to think about my partners and say, okay, fine. I have to think about the audience here also. For example, there were times where there were a lot of these bands playing this style called more metal style. I mean, it's very harsh and very noisy stuff. And I had several bands asking me like, could we come and play a show in India? And I was like, maybe the audience is just not ready for it, because people are slowly just getting into this kind of music. And I want bands, and I want bands to be happy. I want people to be happy. So you need to get that equilibrium over there, and that's how we generally plan our shows.
You said you met a lot of South Asian and Southeast Asian bands. So
yeah.
Is that intentional? Do you focus primarily on bands within this region?
It's not necessary that I focus on that. Of course, with my label Cyclopean, I have been focusing on South Asian bands specifically, because what I feel is, there are a lot of Southeast Asian bands also that are great, a lot of American bands, European bands, Australian bands. But the thing is that South Asian bands rarely get this kind of exposure outside. And another thing is that they really work hard, okay, and there's some really fantastic music coming out from here. If you had met me a few years ago, I would say South Asia, no, because I was not, except for a couple of bands like Dusk and the Japanese scene, I was not much into Asian bands besides Dying Embrace and a couple of the older bands. So the show actually, obviously I'm going to bring down bands at some point in time, touch wood, wherever the wood is, yeah. Yeah, but I'm going to bring bands from Australia, I'm going to bring bands from the US, I'm going to bring bands from Europe, but all in time. The thing is, it's always depends on how, which band is touring the area, which band is, close by to Southeast Asia or South Asia, where I can bring them down. And what's happened is a lot of good bands like, Marduk, Inquisition, Mayhem, and all these bands have come and played. I mean, in just this month, there's Mayhem that's playing in Thailand, Rotting Christ is playing in Thailand, and Possessed is playing in Thailand. Okay, and we have absolutely no venue to have these bands over here. There are no organizers to do that. Of course, I can't do it because they are quite big, and we are not really big guys, okay, we're small guys. But we want to work ourselves where, all these bands come down to India.
So, has there ever been a scenario where you've brought down a band to which the audience was not really familiar with previously, but after they saw them, they've liked them? And
yeah, that's one good thing I really like about Trendslaughter, and it's not it's not me that's doing it or the other members that are doing it, but it's a movement on its own. Okay, it's how things just change with the whole fest. And a big example is Orator, because Orator was well known abroad more than India, or of course in Bangladesh also. But back then in 2010, not many people knew about them in India. And when I brought them in 2011, people just went nuts. They were asked to do an encore, which they never do at any other place. I mean, I'd seen them in Thailand before, and I've seen a few shows, other shows where they played, but the audience actually wanted to do an encore, not a one or two songs. They were like, let's. and that itself shows that that a band that's really good will definitely be appreciated. And it's the same thing with Abigail. Abigail were very popular outside. They're world famous, and they're very popular, especially in Southeast Asia. But people in India don't know much about Abigail. But when Abigail came, people started calling them the Motorhead of the East. So I think that pretty much shows how people get involved into these bands and how these bands become, successful and, win the love of the people basically and the fans.
So you mentioned that you are not big guys. So can you outline some of the struggles that you face while you organize this festival?
Yeah, quite a few actually. Starting with deciding the bands. That itself is a struggle. Sometimes we are just like normal fans. We have arguments. We have so many times people. We are the best of friends, but we have a lot of arguments on how things should be done. Where people should be staying, where the band should be staying, how to have the stage, right from those small things to trying to find a venue, which was the most difficult thing. I remember in 2010, 2011, I think almost for 7 to 8 months there was such a lean period where no shows were being done, and it was a struggle, especially with our last venue. The current venue that we have is an excellent place. Those guys support us a lot. But our previous venue was a venue that, I'm not going to name them, of course, but people who have come for the shows know that venue. They had given us a lot of trouble, right from, getting, paying them the price for the venue, changing things just, whenever they wish to do, because they knew we were not like really big guys and we were doing a small thing. But we tried to convince those people, saying that, we are actually professionals in real life. Okay, we all have proper good jobs and we really don't need to do this thing. But the thing is, the passion is that, and we've never cribbed about money, paying your money, but we want things done the way that we want it to be, So venue, getting bands down, coordinating, oh god, it's quite an effort. Some bands miss their flights, we have to plan things out, and it's happened with every TSF or where there were troubles. Like the last time, Abigail was supposed to fly down from Kolkata to Bangalore, and Kingfisher went bust. They were stranded in Calcutta. Luckily, I was able to phone a few friends, managed to arrange, and I really thank those guys, okay, because they just went out of their way to try and get the band a place to stay, food, all these things, and of course the band paid for it. But just before starting a show itself, I had to refund the band tickets. And I had to book tickets just in a jiffy to get things done. So there are lots of problems, and anytime there's an organizer doing a show, you should always feel, the fans probably don't know about it, but there's tons of things going in the background, and to put a perfect show, it takes a lot of work, really a lot of work.
Do you think some of these struggles are specific to India or even Bangalore, I would say, because we are really...
Yes. In a way, yes, because metal is not recognized much in India, and if you were a classical artist, especially an Indian classical artist, you would get venues much more easily. You would have a bigger audience. People would generally be like, oh, this guy plays, he's a flutist. He plays flutes, or he plays the sitar. We shall show him our support. The same thing doesn't happen to metal, because people think metal is very rebellious, which it is in a way, of course, but they don't consider it music over here in India. The second thing is, India is very far from a lot of these countries where all these bands come and play, so it's a huge expense bringing bands down over here. And these struggles, are also concerned with Bangalore. Bangalore, as I mentioned, for almost 6 months, I think in 2010 or 2011, they had absolutely no shows because venues were refusing to give bands a chance or organizers a chance to have their shows. So when you combine these kind of things together, all these troubles together, it becomes quite difficult. But in one way, I would say India is a lot more easier than getting things done, say in Bangladesh or Sri Lanka, where there's a lot more censorship, there's a lot more difficulty in bands, doing their stuff for simple matters of like saying something against a political regime. You could go under trouble. having occult or having darker themes could put you in trouble with the cops. So India doesn't have those kind of problems. So we are really lucky that way. But there are still a lot more other problems that keep popping up that you need to try and sort out before you do a good show.
Bangalore, I would say, is usually, I mean, they are more inclined towards heavy metal music than extreme metal. So do you think Trendslaughter Fest has set that momentum going? Do you think more fans are starting to listen to this sort of music?
Yes and no. Actually, the thing is, at least when I talk from the perspective, say in say from the late early 90s, okay, say 95, 96, 97 onwards, what was happening was, of course, people then, all the old metalheads, the guys from Millennium and Dying Embrace, who were playing bands. There were a lot of bands back then. Grunge was very popular also back then. I remember quite a few bands playing that kind of music. A lot of people were into proper heavy metal and thrash back then in Bangalore, but it was taking place back even before the 90s actually. So generally, as I wouldn't say exactly, but probably you could call it an evolution. Yeah. Basically, when people start listening to heavy metal, they want to get more and more heavier. They want to listen to stuff that sounds more dark, stuff that sounds more intense. And as a result, what happens is you start discovering new bands. So this has been happening from the past. It's not just now. I bet Bangalore has the most amount of extreme metal heads than say Delhi or say Mumbai. That's what at least I feel. So extreme metal has always been there, but TSF has brought a focus on extreme metal. I mean, we've had bands that were not extreme metal also. For example, you can count Kaushemar. I mean, they are more like a mix of occult rock and doom we had at the last Trendslaughter, which is not extreme metal at all. But yeah, there is a big focus on extreme metal, especially in this edition. One is because I wanted a lot of people to who are listening to really extreme stuff to come and watch this show. The second thing is I want to propagate this music via Trendslaughter and my label, and get more people involved, so it becomes like I wouldn't say a movement, but people should have, people should, or rather bands should have an avenue to have a lot of fans coming and watching them. So I think that would be it. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about what fans can expect for this Trendslaughter edition, and also what's in the pipeline for the next year?
I mean, this edition is going to be probably our most extreme metal edition, I guess. You have bands playing death, thrash, black metal, doom, and these bands are going to be like really crazy because they're all thorough, professionals, and I mean, we're getting Impided, which is probably the biggest Asian band right now. They're playing Hellfest, they're playing Inferno, they're playing Kings of Black Metal, they're playing Fest in Thailand. So we're getting bands down that are doing a lot of big fest. Orator's playing Maryland Death Fest. So you're getting to watch bands that are going to play a really big fest. So I think that's part of the excitement, that these really, how do I say that, deserving bands are playing this fest. And the second thing is that it's going to be, hopefully we might have some props on stage and we're going to have some more additions on stage. Bands are going to look a lot more better in that setting, and it's going to be chaos. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be chaos, not from a show point of view, but bands are just going to be slaughtering trends on that day, and it's going to be really good fun because there's such a mixed lineup, and yeah, it's going to be a headbanging fiesta, I can say that. And
you said you were planning to bring bands from other countries outside of Southeast Asia, so...
Yeah, that would be, of course, in the future. I mean, it depends on when bands are coming down to nearby areas, because it's quite expensive getting a band down from the US. I mean, especially the whole thing about Trendslaughter is everything. We don't have advertisers, we don't have sponsors, we have absolutely nothing. It goes straight from our pockets from our day jobs where we, slog our butts and get money, and then we put it into this. So the only support we have is fans, and if fans actually help us and come for these shows, there is no denying that I will definitely get bands down. And several good and really big bands have asked us to come and play over here. And every time I've been telling them, it's not time yet, but yeah, so the fans are the guys who can make this happen, purely.
Thank you so much for talking to us. On behalf of What's the Scene, we thank you, and we expect to hear more from you in the near future.
Cheers.